Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a real giant of modern Korean literature, a book that truly gets to the heart of a divided nation, Choi In-hoon's The Square. At the very center of this masterpiece is a question we all face. How do we balance our public lives, the part of us that belongs to the crowd, and our private selves, the part that only exists when we're truly on our own?
All right, so to really get a grip on this novel, we first have to understand its most powerful central symbol, the square.
Now, this idea of the square goes way, way back. Think of the agoras in ancient Athens, where democracy was literally born, where the big plazas you see in cities all over the world. The square has always been that spot where we come together as a society to debate, to protest, and to figure out who we are.
It's the stage for everything big. Revolutions, political rallies, you name it. It's the physical place where you can literally see what the people want, where the idea of us really takes shape. It's where a bunch of individual voices can come together and become one powerful chorus.
So how does the novel use this idea? Well, Choi In-hoon, writing back in 1960, uses the square to diagnose a world that he saw as fundamentally, tragically out of balance.
And here it is, the absolute core of the book. It sets up this powerful contrast between the public square, which is all about community, big ideas, our collective life, and the private secret room. That secret room is your inner world. It's about love, freedom, and who you are when no one else is looking. And the novel's huge argument is that for a person to be whole, for a society to be healthy, you absolutely have to have both.
Now, this is the devastating way the novel's protagonist sees his reality. He looks at South Korea and just sees a bunch of isolated secret rooms. It's a society driven by corrupt individualism, he thinks, with no meaningful public square to unite people. Then he looks north and he sees the exact opposite problem. North Korea is one single, massive, forced square, where the state's ideology is so total that it crushes any kind of private life. There are no secret rooms allowed. For him, both systems are completely unlivable.
This whole impossible conflict is lived out through the heartbreaking journey of our main character, a young intellectual named Lee Myung-jun.
So Myung-jun is on this quest, right? He's desperately searching for a place that can hold both his ideals for a better society and his personal need for freedom. He's looking for a world that has both a real, thriving square and a sacred secret room. And in that search, he becomes a man who belongs absolutely nowhere.
His journey builds to this one final, impossible choice. At the end of the Korean War, as a prisoner of war, he's asked the question, North or South? And his answer is neither. He rejects them both as total failures. Instead, he chooses a third way, a neutral nation, and he boards a ship headed for India. But it's on that ship, out in the middle of the ocean, that he has this terrible realization. The perfect place he's searching for doesn't exist on any map. And this leads to the novel's absolutely haunting final idea. For Myung-jun, the only place that could finally bring together the individual and the collective, the secret room and the square, was the sea itself. Just this vast, neutral, all-encompassing blue. A place with no borders, no ideologies, and no sides to choose.
Now, as if this deep philosophical novel weren't remarkable enough, the story behind how it was created is just incredible.
Get this. That's how old Choi In-hoon was when he wrote The Square. 25. Just imagine, to have that kind of profound insight at that age, it just stunned the entire literary world.
And if that wasn't enough, he wrote this masterpiece while he was serving as an officer in the army. The only reason it was ever published was because of this very brief window of political freedom that opened up in South Korea after the April 19 revolution in 1960. Any other time, a book this critical of both the North and the South would have been censored for sure.
When it was released, the book was an immediate sensation. And this famous line from the literary critic Kim Hyun just perfectly captures its impact. He's basically saying he was so completely captivated that he read the entire novel in one breathless night. And when he finally looked up from the page, the world had changed. It was dawn, and he could hear the tofu seller making his morning rounds. What a way to say a book just completely took you over.
Okay, so this brings us to the most important point. Why does a novel written over 60 years ago about the Korean War still feel so powerful and relevant today? Well, I think its legacy endures because it was so much more than just a typical anti-communist story. It went way beyond propaganda to deliver this deep, philosophical look at what division actually does to a person. It argued that the real tragedy was about the impossible choices forced on individuals who were just caught in the middle, yearning for a world that wasn't broken.
And really, that leaves us with a final thought, a question for ourselves. The novel's central dilemma is still very much our own. In our own societies, in our own lives, how do we build a world that honors both the community and the individual? A world that has enough room for both the public square and the private secret room. It's a question that is every bit as urgent today as it was in 1960.
All right, today we're jumping into a really powerful novel from 1960, Choi In-hun's The Square. It's an incredible story about one man's search for the perfect society right in the middle of the chaos of the Korean War. You know this one line? It's basically the key to the entire novel. It perfectly sums up the impossible situation facing our main character, a young intellectual named Lee Myung-jun. It's a statement that just hangs over his entire journey.
So, you've got this guy, Myung-jun, and his whole life is this desperate search for a world where these two things can actually coexist. He's convinced that to have a truly meaningful life, you need both. The square, a public cause that's bigger than you, and the private room, the freedom to just be yourself.
So, first stop on his search, South Korea, in the years right after World War II. But what he finds there? Well, it's a huge letdown. He looks around and he doesn't see a real nation with a shared vision. He just sees a total free-for-all. It feels like everyone is just locked away in their own private room, only caring about themselves. There's no unifying square, nothing to give life a bigger meaning. To him, it's a society that has no soul. So what do you do when you can't find that public square? You go looking for it. And for Myung-jun, that means doing something drastic. He defects to North Korea, hoping to finally find a cause he can believe in. But of course, what he finds is the complete opposite problem. He discovers this massive, all-consuming square, where your own thoughts are dangerous, where even love is political, and art has to be propaganda. The private room, any space for your individual self, is just gone, completely crushed. So you see the problem, right? He's totally and completely stuck between these two extremes. Neither system actually offers a way to be fully human. The South feels empty, it lacks that collective spirit, while the North just suffocates you, treating you like a tiny cog in a giant machine. And this all comes to a head when he asks his own father, who's a big shot in the North Korean government, the simple question: why does the party decide what is true? It just perfectly captures his horror at an ideology that has absolutely no room for individual thought or a personal sense of right and wrong. And here's where the novel gets really clever. It draws this amazing parallel, basically suggesting that communism operates like a religion. I mean, think about it. You've got your Garden of Eden, your original sin, you've got your prophets, your holy symbols, and even the ultimate promise of a heaven on earth. It's a fascinating comparison. And right at this moment, when he's feeling totally lost and disillusioned with everything, boom, the Korean War breaks out. Myung-jun gets swept right into it, forced to fight for a cause he doesn't even believe in anymore. So his journey takes another turn. He gets captured by the South, becomes a prisoner of war, and ends up in this absolutely massive POW camp on Jeju Island. And this place, it becomes a miniature version of the entire ideological war, just crammed onto one tiny island. And when I say massive, I really mean it. We're talking about almost 170,000 prisoners at its peak. Can you imagine? It was just this boiling pot of ideology, where the fighting continued long after the soldiers had left the battlefield.
Okay, so the war ends, and the prisoners are given a choice. This is it. This is the moment for Myung-jun, where he has to face this impossible dilemma head-on.
They literally ask him to pick his nation. So what's he going to do? Go back to the South with all its empty, selfish individualism, or return to the North with its soul-crushing control? He's seen the worst of both worlds.
And his answer? Neither.
In this incredible act of defiance, he just completely rejects both Koreas. He, along with a small group of about 75 others, chooses exile. They ask to be sent to a neutral country, like India, just hoping to find some kind of third option, a place that exists outside of this fight.
But then, on the boat that's supposed to be taking him to freedom, something happens. He sees two seagulls flying behind the ship, and in that moment, he sees them as his lover and their unborn child, who were both killed in the war, and it just hits him with this crushing realization. The world he's been searching for, that perfect balance between the square and the private room, it doesn't exist, not on land anyway.
And that's when he makes his final, tragic choice. The only place that's truly neutral, the only space free from the broken promises of all these nations, is the huge, indifferent ocean. And so, he jumps.
Now, Myungjin's story is heartbreaking on its own, but it's also a window into something much, much bigger. The Korean War wasn't just some isolated civil war. Its consequences rippled out across the entire globe.
You see, the war completely rewired the world order. It supercharged the Cold War. But here's a crucial piece that often gets overlooked. The US needed Japan as a strategic base to fight the war. So the whole process of holding Imperial Japan accountable for its actions in World War II basically got put on pause. Instead, Japan was rebuilt as a key ally against communism, a political decision that you can still see playing out in that region today.
So why are we still talking about a book from 1960? Well, because its central problem is still our problem. It's this timeless reminder that when big ideologies go to war, when the world demands you pick a side, it's always real people, individuals who get crushed in the middle. And that search for a society that actually respects both the community and the individual, well, that's still our biggest challenge.
And that's really the question the square leaves us with, isn't it? In a world that's always pulling us towards one extreme or another, where is the space for a person to just be? It's a question that feels more relevant now than ever, and one we all have to figure out for ourselves.